Hi and welcome to another LRCC Soundbite. If you're a Christian, then happy birthday to us, the church. Today is a day of great celebration. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then let me explain. First, let me recap the last few weeks. A little under 2,000 years ago, Jesus died on a cross on the day that we now refer to as Good Friday. Then 3 days later, on Easter Sunday, he came back to life. Those events made it possible for everything we ever did or will ever do that is wrong to be forgiven. Over the next 40 days, Jesus spent time with his disciples until, at the end of that period, he physically went back to heaven. That was what we talked about last week. 10 days after that, we find ourselves on a day of celebration in Jewish culture. This was the day in those days when they celebrated the beginning of harvest, of the wheat harvest. In Jewish law, offering the first and the best of the harvest back to God was really important. It was a sign of thankfulness to him and trust in him. In our culture today, we tend to celebrate and thank God at the end of harvest, often around September or October time. Jews did it the other way round. So, on this day of thankfulness and celebration, the disciples were all together, as seemed to be their way after Easter. They prayed together, worshipped God together, and probably spent a lot of time talking and thinking about the things that Jesus had taught them. But today was a bit different. All of a sudden, things got a bit weird in the room where they were. It's hard to describe, and the Bible says it was like this and it was like this. So the best I can give you is it was like there was a strong wind blowing through the place. And at the same time, they saw what looked like little flames spreading out around the room and touching everyone. Now, don't worry, this wasn't fire that was burning people or the room. This was something spiritual going on. You see, when Jesus went back to heaven, he told his disciples to go and wait in Jerusalem until he sent them a helper. When that helper came, he would give them everything they needed to go and spread the message about Jesus. This was the moment. But the helper was unlike anything they'd expected. This helper was God's Spirit. Not just some ethereal presence around them, but something of the essence of God himself actually living inside them, empowering them, giving them strength, giving them knowledge and wisdom, giving them the right words to say. Now, in those 10 days between Jesus going back to heaven and this happening, I'd have probably been trying to think of ideas about how we might, set up an event to start giving people a bit of a message, a bit of an idea what Jesus was about. And when this helper, whoever it was, arrived, I'd expect to talk about things, get some plans in place, get some organisation going before we actually do anything. What actually happened on this day was completely different. There was no planning, there was no organisation. The disciples were suddenly so full of God's Spirit that they literally just headed out to the streets and started talking. And you know what? By the end of that day, 3,000 people had heard about Jesus and decided to accept and follow this new message of love, of forgiveness, and of new life. For a completely disorganised group of what was mainly ex-fishermen, this is just madness. It's incredible. It didn't stop there, of course, either. Day after day it continued. And then eventually the disciples began to travel and they shared the message wider. And the people who had converted to this message started receiving the same gift from God. That same power to go and tell others. And so it went on. Wind forward 2,000 years. And that's where we are today. I can't say the church as an organisation has always got it right. But God still uses Christian people all the time, and God still gives that same spirit of power and help to every single Christian, and the promise of love, of forgiveness, of new life remains the same today. So today is the day that we celebrate God sending his Spirit to help us. It's the day the church began, hence happy birthday, church. Do come and celebrate with us this afternoon if you're in the area, 44 Lindbergh Road from 2 o'clock. Otherwise, God bless you, and I'll see you next time.